She actually reached that mark in April in Stockholm, only the third man or woman to appear 300 times for the US, joining Christine Lilly and Christy Pearce-Rampold. What a career, and how much more there might be to come as well for Carli Lloyd. This is pitch side at Q2 Stadium, which is opening up with the US women's national team. Verde and green replaced by the red, white and blue tonight. Laurie, and Vlatko Andonovski making 6 changes to the side that beat Jamaica in Houston just 3 nights ago.
Yeah, and they're a typical 4-3-3, the same back line as we saw in the opening game against Portugal. But my eyes are on the 2 midfielders, the sisters, the Mewis sisters in the attacking midfield position. Their movement is going to be key tonight in order to draw out this low block of Nigeria.
Vlatko Andonovski, who's made the best start ever of a US women's national team coach for Nigeria. Well, a 1-0 loss to Jamaica and a 3-3 draw against Portugal, but just 1 change for them. Keep an eye out on their star player, number 8, Asiet Oshola, who plays for Barcelona. She is fresh off a Champions League success as we are underway. And how good is it to say that in this stadium, Q2 Stadium, 20 years in the making. Austin FC opening up here on Saturday night, but the US women's national team in a city that has always billed itself as the music capital of the world. The rock stars of the women's national team are gracing the stage first, and let's see if they put on a show for this. Adrian Healy and Laurie Lindsay. Laurie, former US women's national team midfielder who played with such distinction in the World Cup and went to an Olympic Games too. And that's what all paths lead to at the moment for the US. The Tokyo Olympics, or the Japan Olympics, that open up in 35 days' time, Laurie. It is perhaps the last chance for some players to impress Vlatko Andonovski tonight. The roster decision will have to be made between now and when they next play in early July in East Hartford.
And we have to remember, Adrian, that Vlatko Andonovski does have a 1.5 years under his belt of understanding these players, knowing what they're capable of. But I thoroughly believe that there's about 16 players that have their position solidified, with 2 remaining potentially up for grabs. And we mentioned those in the open, some players that we feel like need to have a statement in order to solidify their position going to Tokyo next month.
Their players also playing for alternate spots. Not just the 18 starters, but additional players will get to travel to Japan as Crystal Dunn finds Megan Rapinoe with her first touch. Christy Mewis going down under duress from Rita Chikwelu. And it's both Mewis sisters out there tonight. 2 Mewis for the price of 1. Making their 6th start together. Christy and Sam. Megan Rapinoe, so adept from any sort of set-piece service. Floating that one in, but easy pickings for Tochukwu Holloway. Might be anticipating a busy night. Been an interesting summer series so far for the US. They struggled for 75 minutes, didn't they, to break down Portugal in that first game in Houston. And then scored after all of 23 seconds against Jamaica as Mewis is on her way through. First win in the air for Becky Sauerbrunn too.
But the right idea from the US early on. We talked about the movement from the Mewis sisters coming out of that attacking midfield role. Already Mewis linking up with Megan Rapinoe in that final third. And when you think about Nigeria potentially sitting back in a low block defensively, it's the movement to be able to go vertical, to be able to pull out that space and allow for more availability of those front runners of Rapinoe, Lloyd, and Press to get on the ball more often.
Well, right on cue, Rapinoe settling. It was a thunderous challenge from Michelle Alozi, and Rapinoe stays down. Megan Rapinoe winning cap number 171 tonight.
It's a good ball over the top from Abby Dahlkemper, and then Alozi just comes in and swipes the legs of Megan Rapinoe. A hard challenge. But the ball that U.S. will be looking for all game, that ball in behind those wing backs for Nigeria. Look to see if they can pull them out of the low block and then exploit them in behind.
Vlatko Andonovski, the man who was born in North Macedonia, and yes, he has been watching North Macedonia in the Euros. He told us the other day he was dancing with delight when Goran Pandev scored for them. Didn't work out so well in the end, them losing to Austria. But what a start he has made. 19-0-1 in his first 20 games, and looking at Rapinoe delivering this corner. Nigeria struggling to clear their lines. The Super Falcons, the opponents tonight, currently ranked number 38 in the world, if you believe those FIFA rankings, and managed by a familiar figure in US soccer, Randy Waldrum, who took over at the tail end of last year. He was telling us earlier today, Laurie, he's had precious little time with the team. They had one tournament in February, a little bit of time spent in Nigeria a month later, but several players he would have liked to bring here this summer weren't available to him.
And certainly with COVID restrictions, but then also some visa issues that they ran into coming into this tournament, missing about a total of 5 starters. One of the reasons that we're seeing them set up in this 5-3-2 that will look like a 3-5-2 at some point in time when they get into the attack, as we're seeing now, Alozi getting higher as the wing back. But it's one of those things, Adrian, where Randy Waldrum said, if we had all of our players, we could have come out, attacked the U.S. in a different way, look to see where we need to continue to improve. But with so many young players, so many new faces, really hard to open themselves up after some good quality games in the opening 2 matches of this tournament.
Well, that was their first foray forward. Yes, Randy Waldrum facing the problem that many coaches face playing against the US, knowing that you can't stop them. How do you go about limiting the damage? He talks a lot about trying to close down the spaces on the flanks, as you mentioned, Laurie, but here come the US with Christy Mewis finding her sister Samantha, trying to thread it through for Rapinoe, who might still get there. Megan Rapinoe all the way, just winning the race.
And one thing that Randy Waldrum told us was we might be in a 5-3-2, but we're not going to sit back, and we're already seeing loads of space in that midfield. Sam Mewis just be able to pick this ball and threads that ball through a perfectly timed run. Megan Rapinoe, good latch-ditch effort from Alozi just to get a slight touch on it to hold up that ball. Otherwise, Megan Rapinoe wouldn't have missed a stride, would have been right into her path, open in on goal.
Megan Rapinoe sat out the entire 2020 season as COVID raged. She spent some time in the WNBA bubble. One run across for Kelly O'Hara. O'Hara, another with considerably north of 100 caps to her name. 20 players in this 23-player squad from the NWSL. 3 currently plying their trade in Europe. Alozi away, but Sauerbrunn snapping in to win it back. Lindsay Horan thread that through. Of course, in the absence, Laurie, of Julia, it's a lot of eyes on Lindsay Horan and her performances. Vlatko Andonovski saying he's been reasonably pleased thus far through these 2 games.
And she has been good, just sitting in that number 6 role, defensive midfield, just breaking things up. He sung her praises on terms of that first game against Portugal, being a bit of a destroyer like we're usually typically seeing from a Julie Ertz, but then also calming things down. So the last step for Lindsey Horan in that position is providing a little bit more balance, depth in that position, making sure they don't get too shallow when they're in the attack. They always have an outlet to be able to circulate the ball around, go out the other side.
Fantastic sight and sound. The American Outlaws have always had a very healthy local branch here in Austin, Texas. They're so used to having to travel, aren't they? Never played closer than 80 miles to where we now stand, the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. That's the nearest place either the women or the men have ever played. First appearance in the city of Austin in U.S. national team history as Rapinoe was lurking. Smartly flicked behind by Michelle Alozi, who's seeing a lot of early action. Corner work quick and short. Crystal Dunn floating it in. Set up with an invitation attached. O'Hara's shot spins up in the air. Lewis trying to make things happen. It's dug out and scrambled clear by Onome Ebi. Two very experienced players at the back for Nigeria who will be sorely needed tonight. Onome Ebi, at the age of 38, there she is. She's played in 5 World Cups, the only African ever to do so. And a goalkeeper behind her, Tochukwu Oluwaye, has played in 3. Nigeria, though, won't be going to the Olympics. We're somewhat surprisingly knocked out in qualification by Ivory Coast, but it's actually Zambia who's going to be representing Africa, Laurie. They are ranked number 103 in the world by FIFA. It was a huge upset on the continent when they qualified.
And it was one thing that Randy Waldrum highlighted as well when we spoke with him, just the fact that these two teams are in very different positions. The United States obviously peaking at the right moment heading into the Olympics, and there's Nigeria just coming together for only the 2nd time in 14 months and looking to put the pieces all together under Randy Waldrum and looking for their qualifications that are going to begin in October later this year.
Far side is Kristen Press, fresh off a stellar campaign in England with Manchester United. A lot of worry amongst their fan base that she might be leaving as Rapinoe delivers. Well, it was a lovely piece of improvisation from Christy Mewis. Just a back-heeled flick.
And another good look from the U.S. Megan Rapinoe picking up some good spaces out wide. And it was Kristen Press that was coming in late. I thought Christy Mewis was going to see that, but instead tries to go herself, tries to flick it behind. Otherwise, Kristen Press would have been there for the easy tap in.
Kristen Press, who of course played all 4 games in the Olympics in Brazil in 2016. US just 35 days away from opening up in Tokyo against Sweden. The team they lost to in that quarterfinal 5 years ago is Nigeria. Make a sortie forward. It was Tony Payne down the left-hand side.
And it's a good tack from Nigeria. We're starting to see them to get more players involved. And in particular, I'm looking at those 2 front runners, Odega and Oshola, for Nigeria. How can they get on the outside of Lindsey Horan, see if they can make her ask questions on who she's going to pick up?
So, first test of the US defense from a set piece here. Now listen there. A really solid punch clear. She may be called into action again. The follow-up shot, and again, well, 2 shots hit the same player there. Ajibade with the final effort. Nigeria doing the US's defending for them.
They're doing a really good job of staying compact defensively, getting themselves in front of shots when needed on one end, and then sending numbers forward. Alyssa Nair comes out on the corner kick initially, and you can see the U.S. doesn't get out as fast as they could to put even more pressure on the ball. It stays alive. And fortunately for the U.S., Nigeria blocks their own attempt. A couple different opportunities for Nigeria.
Really confidence imbuing first contribution though from goalkeeper Alyssa Nair, who took over the #1 spot post the Brazil Olympics right after 2016. She's been #1 pretty much ever since. Saw Adriana Franch get the start in the second game down in Houston. Naya, who plays her club ball for the Chicago Red Stars. Originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut, though. And some of the La Murga, the Austin FC fan base, who will be the drumbeat here when Austin FC open up play this Saturday. Some of that fan base, of course, crossovers with the American Outlaws, and here in force tonight. Terrific spectacle as this stadium takes the wrappers off. Scooped clear by Crystal Dunn. And now Christy Mewis has perhaps seen more of the ball than any other US player so far. About a quarter of an hour gone. Laurie, what's your initial assessment here?
Well, a good start from the U.S. We talked about Christy Mewis, one of those players that needing to have a big night, making those runs out of the midfield. We've already seen her involved in a lot of action, combining with Megan Rapinoe, looking to send crosses in on this left-hand side. So a good start from the U.S., especially in front of this home base of just under 20,000. But then for Nigeria, a lot of confidence coming into this game, doing well to just shore things up defensively. But then when they get out of it, looking to spring a quick attack with those front runners up top in the counter, or build out with their wingbacks when necessary.
Nice little flick here, and this is really their superstar. Oshola on the ball. Where's number 8? Just won the Champions League with Barcelona. Ortega looking for the angle. Did well to clip it across. Ortega again, needing some help, and help arriving for Ajibade. Her cross with a decent shape to it as well, and Naya scampering out to collect. Euro 2020 is raging on. Almost a week into it, if you can believe that already. Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Ukraine and North Macedonia will commence our coverage on ESPN. You can be sure that Vlatko Andonovski will be getting up early and lending his support. What a job he's done though, Julie. So popular amongst the players. They say he hasn't changed them, he's just fine-tuned them with little but important details.
And it's particularly in those final third, Adrian, that he's looking to shore things up, making sure the right runners, the right spacing, playing to the proper foot, all the little details. Feels like they're right where they want to be headed into this Olympics.
Carly Lloyd, who's been anxious to get on the ball, does so for really the first meaningful time. Coming back and picking the pocket. Now Lloyd is forced to check back for Rapinoe.
Smart play from Carly Lloyd just to recycle, noticing that nothing's on, and that's another thing that Vlatko Andonovski has said, just the patience.
Mewis! Great hit. Sam Mewis from fully 25 yards. And Oluwaye had to be alert.
And that's not the first time that we've seen Sam Mewis to be able to strike from distance. Just gets this ball out in front of her. The patience to be able to recycle that ball. She finds herself wide open and then unleashes a shot. Well done for USWNT to be able just to keep a hold of that and not give up a rebound.
Sam Mewis immediately back in action, finding his sister, but was scythed down in the process. Ajibade was the culprit. With the blue hair, scored that late equalizer against Portugal, much to the delight of the Nigerian fans in Houston. 93rd minute to give them a 3-3 draw and perhaps really bolster their confidence ahead of this test tonight. First ever friendly meeting, interestingly, between US and Nigeria. They met plenty of times at world competitions before, but never in a friendly. As Crystal Dunn picks it off, tries to tee up Lloyd. Crystal Dunn digging in to win this back.
Some good interchange again from the midfielders of the US. This time it's Lindsey Horan making that run in behind. Kristen Mewis filling in behind to provide that depth. It's a different look that we're seeing from Lindsey Horan in that 6th position.
Minutes gone at Q2 Stadium. The first time we've ever been able to say that, as well, it was ambitious. It wasn't exactly delicious from Okoronkwo, one of the Houston Dash players that Randy Waldrum called up for Nigeria. Crystal Dunn looking for the angle, just overcooked it. With Pino, her intended target.
But I like that early look from Crystal Dunn, not the ball that she wanted, but that's the tempo that the US is going to want to play against.
Wow, almost a catastrophe at the back for Nigeria. There's those two experienced players I was referencing, Ebi and USWNT, got in a bit of a tangle.
And they're not afraid to play on the back. It's just too casual, and you can see the pressing ability from Carly Lloyd, why she loves playing that number 9, leading the line up top. Ball falls right to USWNT at the end. But it's the tempo of the US, because Nigeria is not easy to play against defensively. Have good block of players in and around, get into those last-ditch tackles. So it's going to be about the US making sure they keep a high tempo, switch the point as quickly as possible, go out the other side.
You mentioned Carly Lloyd really enjoying the pressing work. She has said, hasn't she, that Vlatko Andonovski's system really does suit her down to the ground. Dunn back to Becky Sauerbrunn. Becky Sauerbrunn, who was a 3-time NWSL Defender of the Year under Vlatko Andonovski. Lots of experience. I asked her yesterday how he had changed in that time, and she said he's a little bit more demanding, he's a little harder. Some of the leeway he may have given players earlier in his coaching career, he doesn't anymore. Now, Horan thought about it. Decided to keep possession for O'Hara. Horan has it back. Sauerbrunn looking for Lloyd, who's offside. Actually, it was Kristen Press. But the flag was instant and definitive.
And I like the idea from Becky Sauerbrunn, and I don't know if that's offside. It's a good weighted ball, well-timed run from Kristen Press. I think that's a wrong call in the end.
Yeah, it was mighty, mighty close.
But that ball in from Becky Sauerbrunn is something that we're going to have to continue to see from the two center backs, her and Abby Dahlkemper, as teams continue to sit back, make it difficult for the U.S. to break down. Those two players are going to become more playmakers out of the back as the U.S. midfielder pushed higher up the field. Something that Becky Sauerbrunn even said to us, I don't want to be a passing station. I want to be able to provide passes that can break lines and get our team into the attack. Good example of that last attempt.
At the end of a crystal clear, sparkling blue Central Texas day with temperatures that pushed 100 degrees today. It wasn't quite that hot at kickoff time, 8 p.m. local time, but there will be a hydration break coming up shortly. Rapinoe with the header! And heroic goalkeeping from Oluwaye in the eye of a storm. And a booking actually for Christy Mewis for going in with too much force on the Nigerian keeper. But that header from Rapinoe was such a delicious one. Mewis had to chase it down, and Oluwaye was on the receiving end.
And we just talked about the two center backs helping set play. That's another good ball over the top. U.S. is finding a lot of success with those clip balls over. Oluwaye with another big save. We saw her in the first game save a penalty kick, come up big on a breakaway. Continues to make some saves that keep her team in the game.
Yeah, it was the after the instant foraging that really got the yellow card for Christy Mewis, wasn't it? Oluwaye had the ball. She didn't have her hands on the ball. Well, she had one. And Mewis kept on chiseling away.
And then Christy Mewis, takes off as if she didn't do anything. It wasn't me.
Well, it was well timed, if you can say such a thing, for the Nigerian keeper, because the hydration break has arrived. That'll give her a few extra minutes with the medical team working on her. ESPN's coverage of US soccer presented by the all-new, all-electric Volkswagen ID.4. And in part by Pizza Hut. Order today at pizzahut.com. Also by Baller, sound that empowers you. Delighted to have the pleasure of your company. Hydration break just past the midway point of the first half. Carly Lloyd, cap number 304 for her tonight, honoured before the game Sunday night. She took 23 seconds to score, Laurie's second fastest goal in US women's history.
And the oldest player to do so and breaking that record, and she continues to do this regardless of her age, gets better over and over again.
And she always produces when it matters most, Laurie. Look at her record in major finals, Olympics and World Cups.
And she certainly does, and I had the ability to be able to play with her and the fortune to play with her, and I've never seen a player to be able to come up in such big moments. You see players do it consistently throughout years, but in the biggest moments, when it matters the most, Carly Lloyd shows up. And that's why I find it so interesting, Adrian, about the conversation, is she going to make this roster or not? I don't think it's about whether or not she's making this roster. I think it's about whether she's going to start for this team.
Right. That's a whole different conversation, isn't it? She's going to be 39 just before the Olympics start. She says, though, she's never been this fit, this fast, this explosive. She changed her personal trainer, a new strength program. And, you know, in this era of athletes who continue to push boundaries when it comes to time, how long do you think she can go? I mean, look at Tom Brady, look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
I mean, listen, the sky's the limit for Carly, and even Lakonowski said it, Adrian. He was like, I think I should just tell her she's not on the roster because she likes when people push back. She thrives in those environments, whether it's the fans, whether it's the coaching staff.
And as the centre forward, it's somewhat ironic now that it's Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan who both play that position. They can't both play it at the same time. Blanco would have to come up with other ways of getting them both out there.
Well, that's a luxury for Vlatko Andonovski, and with how little time there is to recover between games, such an asset to be able to have players that you know that you can rely on to score goals for you when it matters most.
I'm sure the crowd here in Austin will be seeing Alex Morgan before the night is done. Tochukwu Holloway looks to have recovered, saved a penalty she did in their opening game against Jamaica. Mind you, she could have probably sat on a deck chair and saved that penalty, as tame as it was from the Jamaican striker Blackwood. It looks like she is back and running. Underway again at Q2 Stadium in Austin. One ball down the line from Alozi. And the United States far from having things all their own way so far. Laurie wondered if this would be closer to the Portugal test or the Jamaica test. At the moment, it's the former, as Nigeria threatened again, but Oshuola was caught just a step or two offside.
Yeah, the scoreline might be 0-0, Adrian, but still, it's a good tempo from the U.S. They're finding some success, especially on this left-hand side with Kristie Mewis, Megan Rapinoe looking for those balls in over the top. They keep this tempo. They keep focused on the possession when needed, but going quickly at other times as well. Those gaps will start to open up even more.
Here's Abby Dahlkemper, has quite an interest in this city now, of course. Married to Aaron Schoenfeld, who plays for Austin FC, currently injured, but I'm told Abby will be here on Saturday to watch Austin FC open up their campaign at home. It's such a settled looking back line now, isn't it, for Vlatko, O'Hara, Dahlkemper, Sauerbrunn and Dunn. O'Hara combining with press down that right-hand side, didn't quite come off. Now there's Carly Lloyd, sniffing an opportunity out again. Press with the step inside, on the left foot, deflection and goal! But offside, it's not going to count. Flag went up immediately, crowd haven't quite realised it yet. And they will have to wait for the breakthrough goal at Q2.
Well, Kristen Press just does a good job of recognizing when the pressure's going to come, uses the momentum from Nigeria to be able to just cut the ball and then get it onto her left foot and unleash that shot. Unfortunately, is called offside.
Yeah, Megan Rapinoe it was just behind Okeke. I think the ball actually flicked off the Nigerian defender rather than Rapinoe, but judged to have been interfering with play.
But the U.S. doing a good job of utilizing the width tonight. That's opening up that space for Kristen Press to slip inside, be able to find space to roam and get faced up and take that shot and opportunity.
Sam Mewis, and now her sister Kristie. Oh, it's an open Carly Lloyd. Lloyd with some juggling work. Had used a hand in the process, apparently.
And it's right there from Carly Lloyd that she's called on the high boot coming up. But Adrian, coming in this game, we talked about a few players that we said need to have a statement. Kristie Mewis, one of those getting the start here tonight, already been one of the better players on the field for the U.S. clipping that little ball in on that last opportunity from Carly Lloyd, but also vertical runs in behind, opening up space for Lindsey Horan to come underneath. The movement and combination play with her and Megan Rapinoe just gives this U.S. a little bit of a different look in that midfield, a little bit more mobility.
There is Horan again. It's a nicely delivered cross, but fended away by Ebby. Okoronkwo looking for Oshoala.
And I'll be curious, Adrian, what these last 10 minutes for Nigeria look like. In their previous 2 games, have seen an uptick in their energy, in their performance collectively after the water breaks, escaped that goal that was called back. But they need to trust themselves more. They have the skill, they have the ability to be able to beat players individually and collectively. Some good combinations from them in this opening 35 minutes.
One throw again, targeting Oshoala. Sauerbrunn marshalling the situation. Oshoala, the 4-time African Player of the Year. Delayed on her journey into Houston. Was some thought she might have been lugging the Champions League trophy in her luggage. Not quite sure if that
we were hoping that was true.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if that was true. It was a nice idea.
Hey coach, I'll be a little late for the summer series. Have a little bit of extra luggage with me.
Yes. Dalkepa looking long. This 5-player backline for Nigeria certainly pose some problems and some questions for the US attack. Haven't been able to get around the back and down the flanks as much as they'd love to. They love to overload the flanks, Laurie. Really overwhelm opponents on either side, but so far that hasn't happened.
And it's one of the reasons why Nigeria is set up in that 5-back position.
There's Rapinoe, but she's not going to catch up to it.
Tony Payne and Michelle Alozie occupying those wing backs for Nigeria, but also have the freedom to be able to get into the attack, their typical position.
MLS on ESPN, presented by Audi, continues Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Atlanta United taking on the Philadelphia Union. 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday for that. That will be a rematch of the CONCACAF Champions League quarter-final. I'm sure some revenge on the minds of the Five Stripes. That's all a little static at the moment for the US. Is mission accomplished so far for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. This is Chikwelu. US unbeaten in 41 games now, stretching back to early 2019 and a defeat in France. As Oshoala delivers the cross. It was very adept defending by Sauerbrunn. Oshoala has it back and the shot might be on here! Oh, and Naya is happy to see that flash wide. Wasn't by much. Tony Payne had a sight set.
And this is exactly what we were talking about, Adrian. After the water breaks, the upbeat tempo that we see from Nigeria, or have seen in the last couple of games. Oshoala stays with this one, plays a good ball across, and Tony Payne getting into a more advanced position from that left wing back. Just gets underneath it, can't keep it on frame. Has to do better in those moments because those opportunities are going to come few and far between as this game wears on.
Kristen Press, meanwhile, at the other end, trying to inject some pace and intent into proceedings. O'Hara surveying the scene. Press is there to pick up the pieces. And now Crystal Dunn. Left-footed cross. O'Hara was coming in late to meet it, but another effective Nigerian clearance. Okoronkwo hearing it a little bit from the crowd. Is Ordega. Oh, Haran is penalised for the tackle. A quizzical look on Lindsay's face. Was it the right decision, Laurie? I think there may have been an elbow.
I don't know if it was an elbow, but both players colliding. And right there, it looks like Lindsay Horan is called for the elbow. But really good play originally from Okoronkwo, number 12 for Nigeria. Just her patience to get more players in the attack. And Adrian, this is a player just recently for this tournament brought in, a Houston Dash reserve player. One of the things that Randy Waldrum spoke about was the highlight of this tournament so far is identifying new players that can help them not only now, but also in the future.
So free kick in a potentially potent position here. Chikwelo standing over it. Well, I think they would like to have that one back, Laurie. If that was something off the training ground, it wasn't the way they designed it. But that will suit the US just fine. 5 minutes left in the first half and still goalless at Q2 Stadium in Austin. First time a US women's or men's team have ever opened up a new stadium with the first game. The US men came close to doing so back in 2002 when they played a doubleheader at Gillette Stadium. That's a good turn from Kristen Press. And away from Ebby. Only as far as Mewis, who dinks it back in. But that is a gift for the grateful Holloway. Kristen Press, who managed with Tobin Heath to sell more shirts than the entire men's squad for Manchester United. ESPN's coverage of US soccer is presented by the all-new, all-electric Volkswagen ID4. Crystal Dunn striving to get there and does. Nice cut inside, leaving Alozi behind. Rapinoe. No one really crashing in to meet that, though, on the edge of the 6-yard box. And another situation averted for the Nigerian defense.
No one crashing in, and I don't think it's a ball that Megan Rapinoe, in the end, would ideally want to play. Just hoping for the best, a low percentage ball. If you have the runs in, yes, but you have Christy Mewis checking. No one else is making the runs. They're stagnant far post. I imagine that will be the halftime talk when you talk about precision in the final third and the execution. Just rerouting your runs, holding your runs so you come in later. A lot of opportunities out wide for the U.S., just not being able to get it on the end of it and find the back of the net so far in this first half.
Carly Lloyd has showed more hunger to win it than Gloria Ogbonna. Ogbona's there to complete the clearance. Iran has it back for the US. Iran's floated ball. There's been a few of those that have skipped right through to Holloway. Coming up on the AT&T 5G halftime report, we'll have a look at those new team jerseys and how they might build team spirit. Laurie's Olympic team must-have. She'll give her thoughts on the 18 for Andonovski and our first half highlights as well. Kristen Press. That's actually Carly Lloyd, and charged down in the end by Tony Payne. Now O'Hara. 5 awaiting. It was was Okeke who got it away. Ajibade, a driving run, to which she then applies the brakes. Ajibade again. Crystal Dunn only half away. Becky Sauerbrunn completed the job. And now Rapinoe with a little bit of room to roll. Trying to force the issue, trying to get Carly Lloyd the ball. Wasn't really on. Rapinoe tries again.
And Adrian, this is where somebody on the US needs to put their foot on the ball and say, hey, listen, we can get ourselves back into a better rhythm, a better tempo. Yes, it's the last minute of this half, but too many unforced errors, just trying to clip balls in, low percentage balls that are going to be difficult. And Nigeria has done such a good job in this first half with their initial defending, making it difficult for the US and making it predictable for themselves.
3 minutes of additional time. Tail end of this first half, which has been mostly a frustrating one so far for the US. Can they change it? Right at the death, but it's Chikwelu emerging with it. Rita Chikwelu, one of many Nigerian players who play their club football in Spain. She plays with Madrid. Press trying to turn on the Jets again. "60 goals for her. She's gone over 40 assists as well now with her performance in Houston against Jamaica. Red, white and blue in the land of the green and black tonight at Q2 Stadium. Now Carly Lloyd and press! There it is! The moment they've been waiting for! Number 1 at Q2, and it's number 23 who's provided it. An unerring finish from Kristen Press.
And it's such a good time, first time finish for Kristen Press. She looks like she's trying to get the ball over the top, and then you can see there's tons of space. Carly Lloyd just gets to it first, no one marking Kristen Press, and what a dagger for Nigeria. Have done so well to stay committed defensively throughout this first half, but Kristen Press taking that first time, just curling it in to that far post. Oluwayi stretched out, trying to make a play on it, just can't. Really important goal going into halftime for the US.
And again, Laurie, it was Carly Lloyd's energy and intent up front that made it happen, just picking that ball off and teeing it up perfectly for Press.
And the willingness for the US just to keep that ball alive, and you see how the Nigerian defense was just seized parted, the space opened up, and it just lost track of Kristen Press, who did a good job of staying on the line.
Well, the US, courtesy of Christy Mewis, have earned a late free kick. Be barely time to take this at the tail end of the first half. It's Chikwelu. Can't really have any complaints there, Laurie.
No, you can't. I think it's Christy Mewis, though, arguing for a card. I'm not so sure there's a card in that, but definitely a free kick.
Well, having defended so stoutly For almost the entirety of the first half, Nigeria undone right at the end, and now just trying to restrict the damage. And that is the hardest task in the world game. Rapinoe surveying the scene. 5 inside the penalty area. Rapinoe flashed it across the face of goal. Cleared successfully in the end, but the US had to be patient. Frustration for so much of the first 45 minutes, but frustration evaporating courtesy of the left foot of Kristen Press. Goal number 61 for her in her US national team career. The US leading by a goal to nil. When we return, Laurie and I will discuss the new Olympic jerseys, speculate on the task ahead, finalising the roster. ESPN's coverage is brought to you by Volkswagen.
Before, we'd always be late.
This is the AT&T 5G halftime report, part of the Women's National Team Summer Series presented by AT&T 5G. Welcome back to Q2 Stadium in Austin, Texas, where the US Women's National Team lead Nigeria by a goal to nil. What a summer of soccer it is. Of course, we're almost a week into the Euros. Can you believe that? Thursday's action, Ukraine and North Macedonia. Denmark, of course, a lot of eyes will be on their second game against Belgium, and the Netherlands and Austria, 2:30 Eastern. All of those on ESPN. What a perfect evening in Austin. Adrian Healy and Laurie Lindsay, just delighted to be with you. We were wondering whether the US were going to be able to put on a show tonight, Laurie. They haven't had things all their own way through those first 45 minutes, have they?
No, certainly not. It was a much more open game than I think any of us anticipated. Thought Nigeria was going to sit back into that lower block and then look to counterattack instead. Took their opportunities when they could. Early on, though, it would be the U.S. finding some space centrally and out wide. A good tempo for them to open up space. Early on, it would be Sam Mewis just unleashing a shot outside the box, and then a ball over the top from Abby Dahlkemper to find Megan Rapinoe. Some really good runs from Megan Rapinoe and Kristen Mewis out of that midfield. And then Kristen Press would start to work her way into the game, found some space centrally, look to unleash a shot. Ultimately, that would be called offside. And Nigeria holding strong defensively until the last play of that game.
And I love this contribution, Laurie, from Carly Lloyd. Just this little toe poke here.
Yep, and it's the press that you've been talking about, Adrian. Just to continue to fight for the ball, and you can see how the seas have parted a bit here. Unbalanced from the defense from Nigeria, and Kristen Press takes that one so well. Curls it first time to that far post.
So the first half statistics, perhaps not all the one-way traffic we were expecting. 6 shots from the US, 5 from Nigeria, just 3 on goal for the US, 1 from the Super Falcons. Coming up, second half action. Remember, up to 6 substitutes allowed. You're watching the Summer Series presented by AT&T 5G. The AT&T 5G halftime report by Volkswagen. This is the Women's National Team Summer Series presented by AT&T 5G. Warm welcome back, Q2 Stadium, the scene. The US and Nigeria underway at the start of the second half. Kristen Press's goal just before the break, providing the breakthrough. Adrian Healy and Laurie Lindsay with you. And Laurie, if you had to take a guess, what do you imagine Vlatko Andonovski's halftime team talk would have been like?
I think in many ways he would be happy with the first 20 minutes or so, the tempo that they showed, the passing ability, the patience in some ways, and then just lost that, started to try to up the tempo too much, rush too many passes. Now can they get back to circulating the ball around more, looking for those little spaces to open up, seeing if they can take advantage of the space that Nigeria is giving them, especially when Nigeria is getting out of their low block.
they always say, don't they, it's the perfect time to score just before half-time. And it really transformed what had been an exercise in frustration for large swathes of that first half. But will the US come out re-energized here? And this is the third and final game of the Summer Series. The games coming in quick succession. Of course, the team have been trying to mimic conditions they will face in Tokyo, both in terms of heat and in terms of how quickly the games arrive. And the Summer Series games will serve a great purpose for that. Mewis picking it off, trying to find Rapinoe, and all the way on a major excursion outside of a penalty area. Back they come though, and all the way had to retreat quickly.
And another big moment for Oluwayi, just recognizing the play, how much space Megan Rapinoe had, just comes off her line. Denies any good opportunity for the US early in this second half.
Alex Morgan receiving some instructions down near the corner flag. Again, up to 6 substitutions allowable in this series. Morgan, who came off the bench and scored in the 4-0 win against Jamaica.
And Adrian, we talk a lot about these teams sitting back, but this is a really good test for the US, this Nigerian team. Good individually, defensively, good at taking players on 1v1. They can match the athleticism in many ways of the US. It's just where they break down somewhat is collectively, because they haven't had enough time together. But they present a lot of different tests for the US, and it's a good matchup going in, because they're going to see some of this in the US. Not only teams that are going to sit back, but also look to counterattack, but also be able to build out themselves as well. Tough challenge with Mewis. Ajibade.
Yeah, Laurie, it can't be overstated, can it, how different the test is at the Olympics. I'll get your thoughts on that after we've seen Christy Mewis try and storm forward. She did so with such force that it drew the challenge and the resulting yellow card for Okoronkwo. Mewis on a yellow card herself, remember.
But she continues. You see the jersey pull there from Okoronkwo that draws the foul, but Christy Mewis continuing to be a handful, whether it's making those runs in behind or getting on the ball and running at the back line. Really making the statement that we talked about.
Now it's press, providing the surface, great service, and Carly Lloyd. She was just a shade offside as the ball bounced awkwardly behind her. So Laurie, you've been to a World Cup. You've also been to an Olympics. As we look at Lloyd getting trapped offside.
And it's a clear offside from Carly Lloyd, one of the areas that Nigeria wanted to make sure that they continue to hone in on, not letting players run free.
The Olympics are a very different test, Laurie, with games coming thick and fast. Only 2 days rest in between. Game days every 3 days, very different to a World Cup. As Alozie sends the cross in. Chikwelu, and the shot from Oshola safely over the top. Well, someone who very much hopes to be on that plane to Tokyo, not involved tonight. We saw her wearing just a little boot yesterday. Or she rolled her ankle, just a touch in Houston, and she brought herself off the field, didn't she, in the game against Jamaica?
And he said there's some maturity in that, pulling herself off and making sure that she gets the proper rest, leading into some important NWSL games, and obviously the selection and the final roster announcement for next month's Olympics.
Well, it's very hard to imagine a universe in which Rose Lavelle isn't on that plane.
And to your point, though, Adrian, a moment ago about the difference between the World Cup and the Olympics. Yeah, so many differences in the fact that the Olympics, so tight between games, only 2 days. It's really just about rest and recovery, getting back, really less about development. And sometimes it comes down to less about the quality of play. Who can withstand the elements? We know it's going to be hot in Japan. And that's where the U.S. has thrived, being able to have the versatility, the depth of their roster to be able to play players when needed.
Well, Alex Morgan standing by, just down at the bottom of your screen as she watches Ortega get upended. Challenge drawing the free kick. And cue Alex Morgan. I imagine the volume level is about to pump even higher at Q2. It's going to be a straight swap with Carly Lloyd up front. Oh, what an exchange. Morgan makes way. And Alex Morgan, who had such an amazing Olympics in 2012 in London.
And Carly Lloyd, maybe not as many touches as she would like in this game, in dangerous positions. But a good showing in the fact that making things happen, helped press, not Kristen Press, but the press, to be able to find Kristen Press on that go-ahead goal late in the first half. Another tough challenge from Nigeria, this time on Kelly O'Hara. But sometimes that's all you need from your front runners. If they're not getting on the end of the ball in the areas where you want them to, just the press, their ability to defend, turn balls over is what you need.
O'Hara's cross, meanwhile, Sam Mewish trying to get on the end of it. It's Haran who picks it up. She didn't hear the footsteps there from Oshola. Clean tackle from the Barcelona player, and equally clean was Kristen Press, helping out with Haran still down.
Did look like at the end she did get the ball, but after she took out Lindsay Haran.
There's some reports surfacing today, Laurie, that Haran may be on her way back to French football with Lyon in 2022. Of course, she's one of 5 Portland Thorns players in this squad. Had those 4 years early in her career, didn't she, at PSG?
Really good experience. Goes over to France as a young player, skips college soccer, gets the professional experience that she needed, and it's really catapulted her into a wonderful career that she's had, a mainstay on this national team, and just versatility that we talked about in the midfield, typically in that number 10 role, with Julie Ertz out, playing a little bit deeper, offers something different to this team than we typically see with Julie Ertz. But has slotted into that role really well defensively in a short amount of time.
Of course, that is the race against time, isn't it, to get Julie Ertz fit to get on the plane to Tokyo. Tobin Heath, another whose fitness in question. She has been here. We saw her yesterday, just training with the team, not a part of the official squad, but working her way back to fitness.
And a bit of a physical game on both teams' parts. When you got to think, though, for the U.S., keep the ball moving. Don't get yourself into any dangerous tackles. Want to keep everybody healthy. Yes, you want the competition, but don't want the injuries in this last game before the roster's announced.
O'Hara and Haran working it very adeptly across the field of Crystal Dawn. Rapinoe seemed to take a flailing arm to the face. And the referee, Katia Koroleva, agrees. Another booking.
Nigeria doing a good job of just picking and choosing their times when they're going to step up their pressure, making it a bit more difficult for the U.S., having to play out of the back, going long if necessary. It's one of the things that Randy Waldrum was hoping, continuing to build on that confidence, especially with them coming back and tying that game against Portugal on Sunday, 3-3. The team playing as a unit, having that ability to be able to come back.
You're certainly right, Laurie, about the physical nature of this contest. As Kristen Press found a lot of space, she's able to track it down and re-instigate the attack here. Press, little jab from Mewis, but well read by the retreating Ordega. USA ringing around Q2 Stadium. It's going to be a first switch of the game for Randy Waldrum and Nigeria, though. Okoronkwo is going to make way. And it's Esther Akudo Ogbonna coming on. One of the domestically based players for the Super Falcons. Well, talking of bruising encounters, it was Tochukwu Oluwaye who's on the receiving end of the Mewis foraging work, should we call it that, in the first half. She was down for a couple of minutes during a hydration break, and she is down again here. Randy Waldrum telling us yesterday he actually doesn't have his first choice goalkeeper available on this trip. So he'll be going pretty far down the roster if he does have to make a goalkeeping change. There he is, the former Notre Dame coach. So many successful years, 15 years with the Fighting Irish. A few years with the Houston Dash as well. A man very much with Texas in his blood, Randy Waldrum, having grown up here. And she grew up in the Dallas area. Started his coaching career at Austin College, which is actually nowhere near here. It's in Sherman. Kind of an unofficial hydration break here, Laurie, as Holloway is still getting attended to. She's determined to carry on.
And a good opportunity for both teams, Adrian, just to regroup. As we mentioned, it was getting kind of physical, not as much rhythm for the stoppages in play. These built-in water breaks.
And I think Vlatko Andonovski is going to take the opportunity to make a couple of switches. Katerina Macario is one of those we're going to see. I think Emily Sonnet is coming on as well. Macario replacing Samantha Mewis. And Emily Sonnet replacing her sister.
Karen, there's 2 shots, right? Karen.
Sonnet, Laurie, amongst those who caught the eye last time out in the win against Jamaica.
And this is an interesting change that we're seeing here for the United States. Emily Sonnet coming in for Christy Mewett, but she's going to slot into that number 6 position. We haven't seen her play in that holding mid yet for the U.S. She's played there a little bit with her club team, the Washington Spirit. That's going to move the likes of Lindsey Horan higher up the field into that number 10 position. That goes back to what we've been talking about, versatility within players. Emily Sonnet can play any of those positions on the back line. Now we'll be tasked with dictating the tempo, orchestrating the midfield these last 30 minutes.
Here's Kristen Press. Giving Sonnet her first touch. Sauerbrunn funneling it to the left. Crystal Dunn has really had fiery personal duel with Michelle Alozi on the far side. Crystal Dunn, who's 28 now, talking to her yesterday about her COVID year and the fact she's married to an athletic trainer, Pierre Soubrière, of course, of the Portland Thorns. She's saying how much it had actually helped her out during the year away. As Rapinoe cuts it back against the grain, the layoff from Morgan, it was too tight for Horan, and the follow-up shot from Dunn is repelled. O'Hara, good spell of possession this for the US. Nigeria having to dig deep to stay in contention. Press wins the throw-in. Dahlkemper and Sonnet. Abby Dahlkemper is very much the fixture in the English Women's League with Manchester City. Has a contract there until 2023. Meanwhile, it's Macario. She's done well. Presses offside. They have had a little bit of trouble tonight, just delaying those darting run forward. Several times they've come a cropper, fallen foul of the offside flag.
But it's the initial run from Alex Morgan to set up that play, a little inside-out run that opens up the space for Katarina Macario. And then they're able to find Kristen Press just a little bit offside, but a good play. And that movement is key for the U.S., especially with Nigeria being tight now, getting back in their block. And the 5 back that they've been employing all game.
Another change for the Super Falcons. Fioma Onumonu is going to come on. Maybe familiar to regular watchers of the NWSL. She plays in New York with Gotham FC. Placing Francisca Ortega. Almost 20 minutes into the second half here. Q2 Stadium getting its unveiling. Euro 2020 meanwhile continuing tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. Denmark against Belgium. Collective relief at the progress being made, of course, by Christian Eriksen, still in hospital. Clearance away from Sauerbrunn. Becky Sauerbrunn, who played just 38 minutes at the 2012 Olympics in London, and then played every minute in Brazil 4 years later, looking for her 3rd Olympics to go with 3 World Cups. the age of 36, Laurie, she's become such a constant presence at the back alongside Abby Dahlkemper.
Yeah, she certainly has, and will always be in that conversation of one of the best defenders in the world, just with her composure, how she leads this team. So consistent throughout the years, both for club and country. And as we mentioned, even in the halftime, one of those players that's consistently the first names on the team sheet.
Sauerbrunn enjoying the help of a defensive partner, Dahlkemper, there. Well, it'll be Sweden on July the 21st in Tokyo. New Zealand just 3 days later for the US in Saitama, and then Australia on July the 27th in Kashima. It is by no means an easy group, Laurie, of all the teams they could have drawn in the Olympics.
Well, Sweden's always a given.
Yep, goes without saying.
Within New Zealand and Australia, we say the group of former U.S. women's national team coaches.
Yep. Tom Samani, of course, the helm for New Zealand now. Will, of course, be the first major tournament for Vlatko Andonovski, having succeeded Jill Ellis in late 2019. Now then, Morgan trying to break through. Alex Morgan, who's really been in phenomenal form for her club, the Orlando Pride. She was actually the NWSL Player of the Month in May.
And she's leading the NWSL in goal scoring. And this last little play is one of the reasons why, just sitting on that back shoulder, timing the run perfectly, cuts at her angle slightly, can't get the shot off at a good angle, and results in a corner kick.
Again, 5 in the penalty area. Macario making the run towards the near post. Alozi, comfortable header clear, Macario. And again, a whistle goes this time for a handball. Katerina Macario, this is just her 5th cap. Laurie at the age of 21, there's the handball.
And it's unfortunate for Macario because she takes that first touch really well to open her body up. Looked like she was ready just to hit a shot low and far to that far post.
Macario, who made her debut in January, the first naturalized citizen ever to do so for the US. Born in Brazil, moved to San Diego at the age of 12. Been in splendid form for Lyon, isn't she? 6 goals in 11 games. Hasn't quite been able to replicate that on the national stage just yet.
You know, it's been difficult this year for in and out, having to go back to France early after the She Believes Cup or during the She Believes Cup due to COVID protocol. Started to get in some good form with Lyon late in the season, but just hasn't been able to replicate the tools she has at this level consistently.
And a hydration break as we reach the 70th minute here at Q2 Stadium. While we have a moment, US Soccer, of course, firmly believes in the power of soccer to unify our nation. One nation highlights the efforts of the entire US Soccer family, inclusive of the staff, players, coaches, referees, member organizations and fans, and the work that's being done within the soccer community to support, engage, educate and promote diversity and inclusion. We are stronger together, and together we are one nation, one team. And today US Soccer recognized Jordan Johnson, free game in a ceremony for her efforts. Jordan, by the way, is sitting in section 130, row 15, seats 3 and 4. As we look at the American Outlaws, they are gathered at the end where the rambunctious and noisy Austin FC fans will gather. Los Verdes, the Austin anthem, La Murga, and they'll all be making noise here on Saturday. ESPN's coverage of US Soccer presented by the all-new, all-electric Volkswagen ID4. And a lot of those here, I'm sure, would love to see women's soccer, women's professional soccer coming to Austin. That remains a distinct possibility. Something the ownership group here are very much firmly focused on. I mentioned Jill Ellis just a few moments ago. Lauren, of course, she's just taken charge, the newest arrival in the NWSL in San Diego. The Women's Professional League in the country going from strength to strength. Rapinoe's flick didn't come off. Bonner only halfway now. Morgan settling. Alex Morgan. Of course, the delay of a year for the Olympics came to the aid of Alex Morgan, gave birth to her first child, Charlie, last May. It would have been a mighty tall order to make it a year ago. Macario unable to connect with Morgan.
And Adrian, it'd be a very different conversation, especially with that front line, if the Olympics did happen a year ago. Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe both talking about how much they needed in terms of the rest after the 2019 World Cup. As you mentioned, Alex Morgan coming back from her pregnancy. Very different front line than we're seeing that's potentially going to head into this Olympics come next month.
A little bit of high pressure being applied by Onomono, and Osharola just gave Alyssa Naya something to think about there. Gloria Ogbonna, meanwhile, is going to make way. Charity Adule is going to be her replacement. Well, there's always some green in this house. Quarter of an hour to go, and still a slender lead here for the Stars in stripes. An interesting second half, Laurie. The US, Megan Rapinoe and company have had the lion's share of possession, but Holloway, he hasn't had too many meaningful saves to make despite all that possession.
And again, it goes back to them being disciplined defensively, doing a good job of disrupting any sort of real quality attack from the United States, getting their foot stuck in when necessary, holding the line. When asking Randy Waldrum coming into this game what success would look like, he said holding the U.S. to no more than 2 or 3 goals, knowing that they can compete at this level with this team, even though they're missing about 5 of their starters. Really good performance from this far on both sides of the ball, given the limited time that they've had over the last year and a half.
It's a nicely angled ball for Pre. Still, it is her goal that separates the two teams. As Vlatko Andonovski looks for win number 20 out of 21 in Korea. They've now scored, and two of those, Laurie, came in his first game.
And it really goes back to what we heard Vlatko Andonovski say, which is the patience in the final third. Yes, there is the aspect of the execution and the precision, but if it's not on to attack in a couple of different passes, then can you circulate it? Can you find another option? And that might be 10 or 12 passes. If it's on to go against this Nigeria team, then go quickly. That's when the U.S. is at their best. But if they can't, then they need to be more patient, show more maturity in that final third. Right now, too many easy giveaways, too many forced balls over the top.
Oh, crystal gone by Chikwelu. And it's Sonnet, who is indeed going to be penalised for the challenge on Oshwala. Look of absolute.
Oh, we've seen that face from Emily Sonnet many a times before.
It's beyond mystery, isn't it, that face? It's like, what? How can that possibly be?
But that's the energy, that's the tenacity that she'll bring to that role. A little bit more of a disruptor like we see with Julie Ertz. But I would like her to see in these last 12 minutes or so, can she get on the ball a little bit more? She has the capability technically to help with this team in terms of the possession in these waning minutes. Can Emily Sonnet be that player to be that outlet?
There is Sonnet again, as you mentioned, first year for her with the Washington Spirit. She's played overseas too, in Australia and in Sweden. Becky Sauerbrunn with the minimum of fuss, having all the angles worked out. MLS on ESPN, presented by Audi, continues this Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And a Five Stripes team in Atlanta United who perhaps will be looking for some redemption against the Philadelphia Union after the recent CONCACAF Champions League quarter-final. Told we're expecting over 40,000 in Mercedes-Benz Arena for that one. 20,500 the capacity here at Q2 Stadium. Not quite at capacity tonight. They had to keep some seats back again for health and safety reasons. Very close to capacity though. It'll be bursting at the seams here on Saturday night when Austin FC open up against the San Jose Earthquakes. Austin's biggest backyard, Laurie. You look like you're enjoying it.
Oh, I'm loving it. And to see all these fans back in the stadium, the energy, the excitement surrounding this game has just been such a fun spectacle tonight for sure.
And again, the first visit to this city by either the US women's or men's team ever. The US trying to stay perfect. Meanwhile, in the state of Texas, they have been 28 times and won 28 times. But they played more games in Texas since 2016 than any other state, even more than California.
Oh, and right idea from Lindsey Horan. Megan Rapinoe just continuing to run, didn't see it.
Now Rapinoe, teed up by Press, decided to go for the jackpot from distance. Cario. A really useful exercise, if nothing else, and attempts to try and break down a bunkered defense. There could be a sliver of an opening here. The first time ball from Rapinoe, cleared effectively. Lindsey Horan just a little late to the party.
I'm just watching Emily Sonnet and the positions that she takes up as she's playing in that number 6 role. And at times she'll drop back and help provide cover with Becky Sauerbrunn and Abby Dahlkemper, allowing for Crystal Dunn and Kelly O'Hara to get higher up into the attack, provide that width, more numbers up situations.
Just a quick reminder of what lies ahead for the US in Japan, July the 21st against Sweden, New Zealand, July the 24th, Australia, 27th. It's the last game tonight for players to impress. Vlatko Andonovski will be making that squad announcement between now and the next time they play on July the 1st. Players will disperse and go back to their clubs for a couple of games, and then those 2 games against Mexico, will have the second of those, both of them being played at Rentschler Field, July the 5th on our airwaves, a 5 Eastern start time. That's US Soccer on ESPN, presented by Volkswagen. And that really will be their send-off. They will depart just 2 days after that for Tokyo. Good foraging work there from Emily Sonnet, eventually rewarded with the free kick. O'Hara was the player fouled. A couple of substitutions are waiting for Vlatko Andonovski as another attack flounders. This Nigerian defense has been resolute, held their shape and held their concentration, save for one moment at the tail end of the first half. The US continuing to press their case with Rapinoe and Press! Great save! It's as good as we've seen from the US in the second half. And Kristen Press must have thought she scored.
And it certainly is Adrian. Megan Rapinoe just drifts out wide, holds her space, isn't picked up, gets behind Alozi, and this the timing of the run from Kristen Press, just holds it, and it's a good first time hit, but it's Oloei at the end making another big time save from Nigeria. Really good build-up play from the United States.
Now a little bit of a variation from the set piece, Crystal Dunn. And now Rapinoe, still up for grabs. Sonnet. Holloway grateful to hold on and stay down and catch her breath.
And Emily Sonnet just getting underneath this, just trying to loft it into the path of Lindsey Horan. Looked like Oloei at the end was almost going to overrun that ball, but does well to bring it down into safety.
Yeah, she changed her mind, didn't she? Just at the last moment there, all the way. Seeing Lynn Williams down beneath us. It's looking set to check in. Tiana Davidson may see some late action too as Horan is on the move, but beaten to the punch. Inside the final 5 minutes at Q2 Stadium. Here's Alex Morgan. Morgan, a second chance to deliver, goes near post! Well, Rapinoe was offside, and Tochukwu Oluwaye may have plenty of mementos to take away from tonight in the form of bruises.
And Alex Morgan sees the run of Megan Rapinoe. No other teammates with her. All she can do is try that little tricky back heel to look to see if she can get one past Oluwaye. Oluwaye again stands her ground.
So here come the changes. Numbers held aloft. Lynn Williams is going to replace Megan Rapinoe. That was Rapinoe's last piece of action. She departs the scene. She's been quite vocal about her desire for women's soccer to come to this city. Wasn't quite able to light up the Austin night with a goal, but always, of course, such a firm favourite, and beyond that, an icon of the game. Davidson, meanwhile, is replacing Crystal Dunn.
Making their 5th change, USA substitution, leading the game, number 19, Crystal Dunn.
Imagine, Laurie, two players keen to make a very quick impression in Williams and Davidson. The clock is working against them.
And it does look like Davidson will slot into that left back position. Typically we've seen her in the center back. But again, it goes back to what we've been talking about, versatility, players that can play a lot of different positions. Getting the last few minutes, and then Lynn Williams was a regular starter and has found herself not as many minutes as of late, not creating as many chances or finding the back of the net that we're accustomed to from Lynn Williams. But anytime you have a player that can start or come off the bench with Lynn Williams' ability to get into the attack to cause issues, that's exactly what you want if you're Vlatko Andonovski.
Davidson and Williams immediately involved. Macario right into the meat of that Nigerian defense, but the US have it back. Williams again. Moran, that was clever. Crowd in Austin appreciating the flicks and tricks. It's broken kindly. Shot from press, charge down. Into stoppage time, and the US trying to add a capper here. There's going to be 4 minutes of stoppage time. Sauber to press. They had to be content with a 1-0 win against Portugal. First game in Houston. Are they going to have to be content with a similar scoreline on opening night in Austin? Not quite the fireworks that many predicted or even expected. But perhaps a more useful test for Vlatko Andonovski and company.
And I agree with that, Adrian, especially with Nigeria's ability to sit back if necessary, clog things up, but then also be able to spring counterattacks.
Here's Morgan. Forced to put the brakes on. Well, Nigeria have some numbers forward here. Oshola. That was a gift for Tiana Davidson. Laurie, we've talked a lot about the decisions that Vlatko Andonovski is going to be facing in the next few days. What do you imagine he has learnt from tonight that might influence that decision?
Well, I think Kristie Mewis certainly made a...
Morgan, meanwhile. We'll come back to that, Laurie, because Morgan's trying to make things happen. But yeah, for you, Kristie Mewis has elevated her claims.
Yeah, and that was one of the players that we spoke about coming in. Needed to make a statement. Came in, did really well, was active, making the runs in behind, but also coming back, helping set play when needed. And I really think she put herself in a really advantageous position going into this final roster pick. And then also Emily Sonnet, wasn't expecting to see her in that number 6 role, but we know that she can play across that back line, but being able to have another element to her game in that holding midfield position just adds and bodes well for her also in these last few picks of Vlatko Andonovski's roster.
That was a fabulous pick-off there by Haran, and now Williams on the move. Lynn Williams for the US. Can she finish it? Yes, she can! The perfect end to opening night in Austin. A sea of red, white, and blue. And Lynn Williams making it 2. Goals at the tail end of the first half and at the tail end of the second half, completing the night's work. It's goal number 11 for Lynn Williams in a US shirt.
And it's that little dip of the shoulder right there that gets her past Oluwayi. She did have Alex Morgan at that far post. She could have hit it first time, but then just takes that little extra touch, bypasses Oluwayi, who finds herself storming out in no man's land, and then just slots it home. A good run from Lynn Williams to get in behind, times her run perfectly, sets herself up. And a good little glimpse, even though it's late in this game, of what Lynn Williams can offer you off the bench.
Well, talk about timely. It was a last chance to send a message to Vlatko Andonovski. Remember, she made her debut right after the 2016 Olympics, Lynn Williams. Went nearly 2 years without a cap for the US. And the final whistle sounds on the first game here at Q2 Stadium, and the number of the night is 2. Looked for a long time in the second half, Laurie, as though the US were going to be frustrated and only have Kristen Press's goal to take home with them. But Davidson and Williams came on to great effect. And 2-0, just about the right sort of result for you, Laurie?
It is. It wasn't the best performance that we've seen from the U.S. Early on in the game, I thought they had a good rhythm. They made it somewhat difficult for Nigeria. Nigeria held their ground defensively, but then the U.S. would start to rush things, but they would get that go-ahead goal from Kristen Press late in the half, and they wouldn't look back. And we knew this could be the situation from Nigeria coming in to this second half, not have had a lot of minutes together, not being able to put a ton of quality attacks, but still, credit to Nigeria coming in, third match in just 7 days, putting a lot of pressure on the United States and asking different questions than we've seen in those opening 2 matches of this tournament. And Vlatko Andonovski and his staff are going to be able to look at this tape and be able to take some points away going in to the Olympics.
Great stuff, Laurie. We'll be back to wrap things up from Q2 Stadium. The US 2, Nigeria 0.
Before